so often people will say, okay, I've got to do everything. So we focus on the doing, time and task management. And people are like, if I can get organized, I can be less stressed. And I'm like, you can be totally organized and be completely stressed. They don't go hand in hand, because as humans, we never just do something. We always have thoughts around it. We have emotion around it, and we have habits around whatever it is that we do.
You are now listening to the podcast where authors inspire listeners to become authors, the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer, best-selling author, and book enthusiast, DomBrightmon. And you're going to be listening to a different author that will inspire you to join the business of immortality, known as authorship. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode highlight. This one's a special occasion. Yes, indeed. Just like to give a big shout out to my good buddy Tyler Witkowski for supporting the Going North podcast by copping one of the red versions of the Advance Others to Advance Yourself Compass t-shirt. Appreciate it. Indeed. If you want to check out the shirt, head over to one of the social media pages on Instagram, Twitter, or even Facebook at DomBrightmon. And for those who want to support my good buddy Tyler Witkowski, head over to tylerwitkowski.com. That's TYLERWITTKOFSKY.com, so you can check out him and his wonderful work. I'm grateful for him. Copping a t-shirt and some merch to support what we're doing over here in the Going North podcast. And heck, I like it so much that this episode is going to be up later this year in November 2023. So be on the lookout for his episode to drop, since he's a fellow writer. And if you too would like a future shout out on a future episode of the Going North podcast, cop some merchandise via the TeePublic shop on goingnorthpodcast.com shop. And we'll be sure to highlight you on a future episode if you let us know by tagging us on social media, so that way we can tag you and share the love and spread it around like butter on bread or cream cheese on a bagel. Now let's get on with today's episode. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for authors known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, it's the Going North podcast. We got another super special, awesome human for you today, courtesy of one of the best sites on the internet right now, known as podmatch.com, the wonderful site where podcast guests get to connect with podcast hosts. And if they're cool, they're freaking in. And today's guest is cooler than 3 cucumbers. That's right, indeed. She's got a whole pyramid of cucumber coolness going on, indeed, because she is not only a wonderful best-selling author of multiple books, she's also a past podcaster as well, because she's done 2 of them, and she might be doing more in the future. We never know. And not only being an awesome content creator, she's also a coach, consultant, keynote speaker, and resiliency expert. So you're going to get that R&R with the first R today, known as resiliency today. So let's give it up for the amazing and generous Allison Graham. How you doing today, Allison?
Awesome. I'm going to take you everywhere to introduce me. The best podcast voice. I love it.
So you're that right, folks. If a random black guy's head pops out of Allison's purse, you know what happened.
That will be why. And, I need a bigger purse. I've decided.
Will it be a coach bag since you're a coach?
Oh, you know what? It really should be, shouldn't it? I might have to switch. I may need to revisit the type of purses I have for that very reason. Thank you for that now.
Yeah, that's right. Business coach, life coach, business growth coach, top 20 under 40. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Or should I say top 20 under 4 if you're dyslexic?
Yeah, and I'm a little over 40 now, for the record. Just, but that was a great award, actually. We, our city started that, and I was part of the inaugural group. I was very proud of that. It was actually with my first book that I was published by John Wiley and Sons. And that was actually, it was my second book, but my first traditionally published book. And that was what earned me that top spot. See, it was good.
I knew you were the cream. That's right, indeed. She's the cream and the cherry on top, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. But my goodness, as with all victories, they don't always involve being at the top all the time. Sometimes you have to go through the darn valleys and then climb up the mountain. And I'm pretty sure it was an arduous journey. So, what makes you the amazing Allison that you are today?
Oh my gosh, which journey do we want to talk about? And it's interesting because as I hear you talk about, into the valley and up the mountain, I think it's really important for people to recognize, like, there's no like mountain that goes forever. Like, you can create and reach this level of what you would perceive as success, and get ready because there's another valley coming. And that's part of life. And that really used to throw me off. And now I just ride the waves of the up and the down, and try not to get too down when circumstances are really tough. And goodness knows, like all of us, I've definitely had my share of punches from the universe of sorts. And yeah, so it's been a wild ride.
Oh, yeah, wild indeed. Because my goodness, like freaking, I'm guessing medical malpractice on top of multiple bouts of grief. It's like tic-tac-toe gone bad, sadly, from what I've heard in the past, sadly.
Yeah, it's so I had a surgery. You're right. Let's just start with that. I love it. Yeah, it was a cyst. It should have been really simple, and it wasn't. I ended up with chronic neuropathic pain, and that actually happened in 2007. So the implications of dealing with what essentially feels like a serrated edge knife digging into my body every day since then has definitely tested my resilience, my resolve, my faith. Everything about how I show up needs to be managed as best as I possibly can. And it's the reason I created all of my frameworks, because I know that when I have stress brewing, when I get out of flow, my neuropathic pain intensifies. And that to me is my guide. So when my pain is like really hitting the top of my max, I know I need to, as my mom always reminds me, take my own advice.
Yeah. That's hilarious. And sometimes that's the hardest advice to take at times.
It is. And it's, I often joke our mess is our message. And I don't know where I originally heard that. I heard it years ago and from another speaker. So I wish I could credit them. But if we're going through something, and I think that's so important for people who want to be authors or who are authors, or maybe you're feeling that sense of, imposter syndrome, which a lot of people like, do I have anything to say? It's like, if you've gone through it and you're at least a step ahead where your reader is right now, then you're their light. You're their opportunity to move forward, right? Like, you can give them that extra little bit of insight that can pull them forward. So whatever your mess is potentially your message. Now, the caveat to that is you can't do therapy in writing and share it with other people. You need to have be far enough through your journey that when you're writing, you're not doing your own therapy and getting through it, right? Although it can be very cathartic. I have made that mistake in some of my writing. So I share that as a cautionary tale.
Yeah, there you go. A cautionary tale. And it might be wagging too. So, beware.
Are you referencing the 3 dogs I have behind me in my home right now? Yeah, where I'm staying. All the wagging tails. They're all asleep. Never mind.
All righty, good. The sedatives worked. You love to see it. You love to see it indeed. So my goodness, interesting point too, because it actually reminded me. Heck, even remember one time, like this was like years ago. Like I said, I was gonna be giving this speech that was gonna be called "The Best You" or whatever. Like an idea one of my mentors gave to me, and like when I mentioned folks I was gonna be giving that talk, they're like, "Sure, are you sure you're ready to give that speech?" And it's like, well, yeah, then after a while, I was like, after the third person, it's like, damn, I guess folks ain't believe me yet. And this kind of goes to that point of yours of where, like, hey, sometimes when you're going through that healing process, it's like sometimes it's better to get yourself a little further ahead before you really drop the metaphorical nuke on folks. Because sometimes folks may not, even yourself may not be ready yet, even though you may think you're ready. And then out of nowhere, it's like, oh, wow. All righty. I just set my own landmine.
Right. And then you can ultimately end up re-traumatizing yourself, right? So I'm curious, how did that speech go? This was years ago. So were you ready to give it? Were they right or were they wrong? Because they could be wrong.
Yeah, funny enough, like I actually ended up combining two old speeches and like I kept the title, but the content was totally different. That was the
Mm,
thing. So it ended up being two speeches combined into one and like because I had to fill up a time because this was like for Toastmasters back in the day. So I had to make sure I filled in the time of 15 minutes. And I was like, okay, I got the 10. Well, I guess I got the spare content I could use. It should work out good. And I was like, all right, yeah. And like, if I were to give it today, it would be totally different and a lot
mm.
longer and a lot better.
Well,
Folks
and
actually
this is the
enjoy a lot more
growth,
too.
right? Yeah. Mm. Well, I was listening to another one of your podcasts and you had Kelly Swanson on, right? And she's a masterful storyteller, just incredible. And she was talking about how, there's a need in the marketplace right now for the unpolished speaker. Like we don't want to be too polished. And I absolutely agree with her. And, which is interesting because I would look at her and go, oh, she's polished. She's so incredibly polished. And then she is so polished that she can become unpolished, right?
Mm,
Like I think there's that balance in there. So I believe, we don't have to have perfect speeches. We don't have to have perfect books. We just have to be doing it from the right, I believe, in like our inspiration for sharing the message can't be to heal ourselves. It needs to be offer up service to others.
yeah, that's right indeed. That's right indeed. There's a reason why A is the first letter in the alphabet because she's freaking amazing. She recorded a past episode and one of the best ones so far too. As I'm talking about indeed. Yeah, it's all right. Like folks, it's they're not always a fan of the polish. Like it's of course to your wonderful, well put point of hey, she's so wonderfully polished that hey, you can get into that unpolished realm at least from the outside looking in, or should I say from the inside looking out from her perspective in this case. And it's like, yeah, because a lot of folks, they want that genuine authenticity. Like jokingly, they want the leather jacket. They want the leather jacket, not the pleather jacket.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. No apologies to the vegans for that
It went through my mind and I was like, no, I'm not gonna talk about the political correctness of, pleather versus leather. I'm not gonna be the person who's bringing that up, but you did. So well done.
Yeah. I'm American, so confidence, just sticking our nose and everything. Yeah.
And I'm Canadian. We're way too polite to do that, I dare say. And that's probably not true for all of us.
Yeah, Mother Nature had too much to drink up there, I hear, and sent some of her weed down here.
Hey, and our beer is stronger.
It's that maple leaf muscle, y'all. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, on speaking of magical books and not being polished, or should I say, being so polished that it's unpolished. You got so many books out there, especially your most recent one at the time of this recording. Take back your weekend. So my goodness, so what inspired you to finally write that book after publishing two other books that were probably with two different subjects, to be honest?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's interesting because they all follow the same path. So my first two books were on networking and building profitable relationships. And that's how I developed my company of speaking and training and coaching initially. And what I started to notice was that it didn't matter how many tactics you had to network and to get to the decision maker or work an event. if you didn't have time, or if you didn't have confidence, or you didn't have the, the bandwidth, essentially your capacity to actually go and do it and invest in the relationships and make the time to show up, it didn't matter. And so I felt like in so many ways I was banging my head against a wall, because I was teaching people how to go to an event and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm way too stressed. I have way too much time, stuff on my plate to deal with it. And I hit a certain level in my own company that was a goal level. And my brother said to me, he said, Allie, like, now you have time, like you kind of have the freedom to do whatever you want to do. Like, do you want to keep teaching networking? And I was like, you know what, if I have to teach somebody how to mingle one more time, I'm going to put a fork in my eye. Like, I was so done with the topic. And I should give you a second to process that. But it's like, and every speaker knows this. There comes a point where you're just regurgitating the same information and it starts to lose its zest for you, where it used to have you on fire and like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to help people through this. And I did. Like, initially it was like people were so stuck, and I would see them at events and I'd be like, oh my gosh, you're not getting any value from this. Like, a lot of people, but you're not making any money, or you're not creating any new contacts and you're kind of stuck. So it was really driving me. But then I expanded and my work, and I started doing more strategy work, and okay, how can we find you the right people? And that became the book. So the first two books were around networking. I'm noticing all this. My brother says to me, hey, what do you really want to do? And I'm like, look, people are going through stuff behind the scenes, and all these tactics are going to fall flat if they don't know how to deal with the truth behind the scenes. And that led to the next book, which I'm sure you want to talk about at some point. I won't give that title away yet. And then that, as I started talking about resilience and building and better allocating your resources to think, to feel, to be, to do each and every day, I noticed that people were really emotionally attached to having way too much work. And this was interrupting their ability to hang out with their family and take guilt-free time off. And it was impacting their work. Like, I can't tell you the number of professionals, like leadership level, who are like, I'm so miserable because I can't just relax. And I get that it comes with my success, but I'm not happy. And I'm like, is it even worth it? So anyway, that's what led to the Take Back Your Weekends. Stress less, do more, be happier. It's like, how do you approach that heavy workload and not be emotionally attached to it? That's what that book is about. So as you see, long answer, everything kind of worked together.
There you go. That's right, indeed. She started off with jelly and found the peanut butter, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. And the butter was smooth. That's right, indeed. It was the smooth version, so it would go nice and easy. So you can take back your magical weekends, indeed. That's right, indeed. And I love the fact that the book is a short one too, and it's like the print is great.
Huge print. That'll tell you about my over 40-year-old eyes. I'm like, I want white space. And that was purposeful. And it's a very short read. It's power packed. Like, when I'm with my coaching clients, I'm like, read that. They're like, they do it in 2 hours on an airplane flight or, wherever. And they get through the book, and then that gives us the meat of what we can, like, the launching pad for what we're going to do together. And the coaching work that I'm doing, like, I had a client, we just finished a 6-month program. And when he came to me, he's like, I have no space, mental and emotional space. He says, and we calculated his work time, and it was at 128% capacity. So he was like, before he was going to bed, he was thinking about work. When he was supposed to be relaxing, he was thinking about work. We can all, identify, I think, sometimes with that. 6 months later, not only is he more profitable in his business, he is at 38% capacity. He has fallen back in love with his wife. They are doing vacations. He is figuring out what makes his heart sing and how he wants to design his future. And that's the power of the work. But having the book is like the Take Back Your Weekends was sort of the foundation of what I'm teaching in order for that to happen.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right, indeed. Taking them from sumo wrestler to a professional wrestler. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. From 500 pounds, or should I say 700 pounds of busy work all the way down to a good 190. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Making them chiseled. That's right, indeed. Helping them find their Michelangelo of productivity from the marble of the mire in the mud of busy work.
Wow, you're good at those metaphors. Are those metaphors? Yeah, I think they're metaphors, right? I think so. Are
Oh
they
yeah,
similes? Yeah, anyway, yeah. Good.
yeah. Analogies too. Some M&A.
Analogy, that's the word I was looking for. Sure. Metaphor, analogy, whatever it is pretty good.
It's like they're all the same at one point, and they all just mix together. If you put it in soup, it's okay. That's right, indeed. Especially if the alphabets come out with ooh.
I imagine your days are fun. I feel like, it's a few people who can laugh at their own jokes, and I'm impressed because I can do it too. I sit here by myself and I laugh, right? Like it's one of the greatest skills that we can have in our lives.
Heck yeah. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. It's one of the skills that can pay the bills because if you can make them laugh, you can make them buy. That's right,
Mm.
indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, my goodness. So, I'm sure one of the processes involved to getting my man down to 38% capacity away from the 128%. Like, God, man, like, dude was trying to get blood from a stone, trying to get an extra 10 hours a week, I guess. Like, I'm assuming one of the wonderful techniques probably mentioned in your book is the whole ice cube analogy, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my goodness, it is. You've done your homework. Oh, I'm excited. Can I explain this whole concept? I'll do it
Of
very
course you
quickly.
can. You can
This
take long if you
is
want to.
all right. I will. Let's draw it out. No, we won't. Okay. And it's a metaphor because so often people will say, okay, I've got to do everything. So we focus on the doing, time and task management. And people are like, if I can get organized, I can be less stressed. And I'm like, you can be totally organized and be completely stressed. The two are not necessarily, they don't go hand in hand because as humans, we never just do something. We always have thoughts around it. We have emotion around it, and we have habits around whatever it is that we do. And so those thoughts often default to negativity. Those emotions are often misplaced. So I'll tell you about that in a second. And those habits are sometimes, dare I say, unhelpful. Okay. So now when we think about this, if we were to imagine everything that you need to do as an ice cube that needs to be melted, the more efficiently and effectively you melt that ice cube, the sooner you can get on with the rest of your day for whatever it is that matters most to you. But as part of the human experience, we don't just melt ice cubes. Oh, no, because that actually is the easy part, right? We also have access to this huge pile of snow that is with us at every moment. And so if we start with the emotions, okay, so we put that ice cube and we wrap it in emotion. And then all of a sudden, let's say it's misplaced. So here's an example of that. You are concerned about cash flow because your roof just collapsed. You need to figure out how to pay for that. And they're laying off people at your company. And now all of a sudden you've got a ton of fear, a ton of like survival stress emotions, completely legitimate. And your child comes up to you and says, "Hey, Daddy, can we play?" And you're like, "Get out of here. I told you we don't have time to play today," right? And you snap at your child. That's misplaced emotion. You just made the issue of your child interrupting you harder than it needs to be, because now you've got guilt, you've got an angry child who's now angry or is crying or whatever. That's misplaced emotion. Same thing if you see in the barista, right? If you go to Starbucks and they get your order wrong and you lose it on the Starbucks person or the grocery store clerk, And it's because you're actually afraid of this thing over here. Okay. So that's what I mean by misplaced emotion. It can complicate other things that are unrelated in our lives because we're not processing the emotion effectively on the things that actually matter. So back to our ice cube that became the snowman. We take that ice cube, whatever it is we need to do, and we wrap it in some emotion. Then we add another tier of snow, and we call that one the thinking tier. And so we start creating these negative storylines, right? So, oh, I can't believe, well, I'm going to tell you a story that'll wrap it all up. So never mind. I'm just going to leave it there. So we got this other layer of snow. Now remember, the thing we still have to melt is the ice cube. But now we got to get through the layer of emotion, the layer of thought, and let's throw a little barrier to performance snowball in there too. And, thinking about worrying about it, judging ourselves because it's not happening or we're not doing it right, complaining about it, gossiping. There's a 41 barriers to performance that I've identified that can make your life harder than it needs to be. So no matter what, you just have to melt this ice cube, but think about all that extra snow that you've added. And so I remember I was sitting down with a friend of mine and we were going out for lunch and she waltzes in and I can just tell the energy is a rolling in this scenario. So she sits down and I go, how are you? She goes, awful. I'm like, oh, wow. She goes, I got to go get a new job. This is ridiculous. I can't believe it. Now, this is a friend who works for an international company at a fairly senior level executive position. So international local office. And she's feeling this way. And I said, what's going on? She goes, 3 weeks ago, head office sent down this new directive that they want us to fill out this reporting system. And you know what? They don't understand what's going on the ground. Nobody's going to read this anymore. They're completely disrespectful to me. And I've not done it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is huge. So tell me, like, you've spent 3 weeks procrastinating on this report, getting pretty angry, as I can tell. How long is that report going to take you? And she leans back in her chair and she says, 15 minutes. Like, oh, so you just spent 3 weeks getting angry, irritated, procrastinating. Probably somebody down the line at the company is waiting for your report. It would have taken you 15 minutes. And here's where we're at. And that to me is what people are doing, versions of that at varying scales, turning the ice cube, the 15-minute report, into snowmen that now need to be created. So it doesn't mean that her feeling disrespected wasn't legitimate. That needed to be dealt with, but not in relation to the report. And this is what I'm talking about when I say people are making their lives harder than they need to be. So that's the ice cube that became the snowman. And my goal is not to get people to stop creating snowmen because, quite frankly, I mean, you're always, if you're a warrior, and by the way, from a very accomplished family of warriors, like my father was incredible and he taught me well. But it doesn't mean we want to worry not worry ever again. It's, can we take our worry for 3 weeks down to 3 hours, down to 3 minutes, down to 3 seconds? That's the key. Make smaller snowmen so that we have space available so that we can deal with more of the ice cubes and the bigger ones that actually matter in our lives.
That's right, in our lives, indeed. So it sounds like we got little Olafs in our heads from Frozen all the time. It's like, do you want to build a snowman? It's like-
Exactly. Stop. I need like somebody who can do his voice to like rewrite that song for me. It's like, and I know it's such a silly thing, but my head, like my mind, first of all, notices patterns in human experience. I mean, that's why I do what I do, right? And I just think in terms of visuals. And it's like bigger snowmen equal a harder life. And so shrinking those snowmen gives you more space in your life to actually do the things that matter. And so with this client who went from the 130 or 28% capacity to 38% capacity, we got rid of a few ice cubes. Sure, you know, like that was fine. But the bigger issue is we created smaller snowmen. So the repeating moments of angst, the things that we're stealing from his capacity each and every day, those are the things that we dealt with. That's the key. And then that created so much more space for him.
Heck yeah, that's right indeed. She's like a home organizer for your brain indeed. And I'm so glad you came up with that wonderful metaphor of the ice cube, because that's actually probably one of the best ones that I can think of from reading a few productivity books. Because the thing is, like, we do like just add like so many things, like with like all the exterior stuff as opposed to the actual problem. And so wonderfully pointed out with that story of the executive coaching friend of yours, like a 15-minute thing basically robbed her, or should I say, she robbed herself 3 weeks of productivity over a 15-minute task because of some other stuff going on from all the snow.
Right. But like, how many times do you see that happen? All the time. It's just, and I don't even think that, I think a couple things are happening that people are doing this more and more. Number one, there is legitimately really, really difficult times happening now for a lot of people. And collectively as a whole, there's a lot of crap in this world. And so, you know, that's our reality. I would never deny that. But when we don't give ourselves the space and the grace to process all of that, what's happening, and instead we go through the motions that are like, absolutely, we're on the daily grind, and it's almost like we're suffocating on the daily grind. And we're just pulling all this emotion that we don't have any space to process, and we're applying it to the busy, 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 busy. No wonder people are feeling like burned out and just beyond their capacity, right? And so unhappy. And I'm like, that's not a good way to live our lives. That's not the way that it's meant to be. And so my hope is that the work I do and the metaphors I share can help other people just see a little bit of glimmer of hope on where they can create some space mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, so that they can right size their capacity equation and feel more at peace in their lives.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Y'all getting that hot fire today. Even though we were just talking about snow indeed. Some folks need to give themselves that space and grace to go through the process indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. She's a poet and she doesn't know it. Until now.
Maybe I do know it.
Well,
Anyway, I digress.
well, hey, Daddy was a musician, so hey, something artful had to be in your brain.
Yep, exactly.
Hashtag artful Allison. You love to see it. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, and you got this wonderful book coming out in the future. Will that be this year or next year, or is there a timetable on it for the
That's a great
Stress
question.
Illusion?
Dom, I don't know. I'm rewriting it this week.
Oh wow.
The
Okay.
fourth time. Because here's the thing, the way, and because it's all these concepts that need to come together to create and share my methodology. And the book is called The Stress Illusion. And that is basically, my belief is society is fundamentally flawed in how we're approaching stress, how we determine what causes it, how we relate to it, how we're taught to measure it, and how we're taught to deal with it. And a lot of the work out there, like one of the cool like illusions about it is we're taught to manage our stress. And I'm like, no, we need to stop creating so much of it so we don't have so much to manage.
Good old snow
Right?
again.
Well, and why, like, go to a gym at 5:30 and look around. There are a lot of people who are exercising to release their stress. And I'm like, yeah, but you spent 9 to 5 creating it. And now you're expecting 45 minutes on a bike to release it all. And of course, that's important. Healthy lifestyle. Yes. Of course, we need to do that. But like, what if your 9 to 5 wasn't so stressful that you needed to go to the gym in order to actually release the hormones before you go home to your family so you don't blow a gasket on your family? That would be maybe a little bit more healthy, or healthier, not more healthy. I think that grammatically was incorrect. Yeah. You're like, no big deal. That's what spell check's for in our books.
And even they get it wrong too.
Right. Oh, they do. So, but you know what I mean? Like, this is the thing, like, we're taught to breathe deeply. Of course you need to breathe. Oh my gosh. And you know what? If you breathe deeply, you're probably going to be healthier and you're going to be more at peace in your body, but you can't be in the middle of a contentious client meeting and just be like, excuse me, you're stressing me out. I'm going to breathe for a second. Like it just doesn't work, right? Like it's not the way it is. And it's like when I do especially when I do an executive like roundtable retreat where we're like having a conversation, right? So you've got 15 executives in a room and I'm leading the conversation. I'm like, what is on your list that's stressing you out? And it's always the things like, I don't have enough team members. I've got people going off on stress leave. I am, concerned about my travel now that COVID's over, right? I'm back on the airplane and I'm missing my kids. And, and I'm like, all of these things that are truly important in our lives, breathing deeply and exercising and eating nutritiously are not going to solve them, right? You're not going to be able to get rid of the guilt, a layer of snow, that needs to be processed effectively. And the way I teach it is a problem-solving framework and a rapid fire resilience rundown, right? That like is how you can apply the information and gain perspective in real time. And so all that to say, the stress illusion, I need to be able to figure out exactly, and this is the art of writing a book that can change lives. Oh my gosh, I just read a book called Write a Must Read by AJ Harper. And I got to tell you, it is brilliant. If I know you're serving authors, right? Like if people out there want to figure out how to write a book, read that book because it's incredible. And it's really about how do you plot the learning journey for the reader so that it absolutely makes sense. And so to answer your original question, when is the book coming out? It will come out as soon as I can figure out that magic of, and I think I have it, but I won't know till I read it. And so I will be I actually started this morning into the zone of writing with this new plot. So it's all the same information, just unveiled differently to take the reader on a journey.
Oh, okay. All right. So is it going to be a business fable or is it still going to be nonfiction?
Oh, no. It's 100% nonfiction. It is.
Oh, okay.
It is. It's teaching my methodology. But when I teach it, the entrance point of where people are at and what they need to know. So for example, I teach a problem-solving framework. I teach the different types of stress. I teach how you actually recognize what's causing you stress. I have my continuum of challenges. See, this will sound confusing to people, and the ice cube that became the snowman. And all 5 of those need to work together in order to get the big solution. But do I teach about the stress first? Do I teach about the ice cube first? Do I teach about the problem-solving framework first? That's the place I'm playing with.
So is it just 5? Because I mean, maybe
no, there's
using
more.
a hand. Oh, okay. So the hand analogy's out. Okay, never mind.
It's like bring on the fingers and toes. Although I've taken out a whole bunch because, sometimes authors try to put too much into a book. And probably my first pass at this book was, it was 4 books in one. Ooh. So I'm really about what is going to serve the reader and help them come from feeling like they're suffocating and they're at 128% capacity to taking that journey to come down to 38% or whatever their beautiful sweet spot is. It's going to make them feel like their soul is lit on fire in a really great way. That's what I want for my reader.
Woohoo! And they will have it indeed. The stress illusion. It's all an illusion, y'all. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. It actually kind of reminds me of a little bit of Wendy Suzuki's last book, Good Anxiety. It's like a good old play on something folks wouldn't think about. It's like, hey, just tapping into the good parts of the anxiety to perform better and not butter.
Yeah. Well, it can, right? It can be a great driver. It can be a great telltale sign. I haven't read her book, but I'm sure it's brilliant.
Yeah. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. With all the lights indeed. So my goodness, so since you've been on so many interviews on both sides of the microphone, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often?
Oh, I love that question. I don't know. I'm so in flow of like whatever your listener needs, right? So I think people underestimate, if I were to say anything, like somebody asked me this the other day after I gave a speech, and they said, "Yeah, but like you're not in pain anymore, right?" And I'm like, what part of my speech led you to believe that I'm not in pain anymore? And the truth is I am. I still have neuropathic pain, and it's wreaking havoc on my body because your body's not supposed to, for 17 years, feel like it has a knife twisting into your body, right? So I just think it's because I have a smile, because I can laugh at circumstances, because I have perspective, because I can pull out the problem solving framework to get rid of the snow faster. It's very easy to look at people and say, oh, well, they have it easy. Right. And, they're not in pain. Like, A, I'm in pain. B, I'm still rebuilding my business after COVID and trying to figure that out and get known in the marketplace so that I've got more speaking engagements. I'm nowhere near at my own capacity in terms of how many speeches I'm giving and where I want to be. I'm very blessed to have incredible coaching clients, and I'm like maybe have room for one or two more. That would be my max. So that's okay. But like, I don't think people recognize the struggle, and I don't need the struggle recognized for me. I need it as a cautionary tale for making assumptions about other human beings and then discounting ideas and information because it's like, yeah, but what I'm going through is worse. And I guarantee you there are listeners who are going through many worse things than I'm going through right now, right? But that's perspective. That is not a solution or a way to diminish the reality of your issues, right? Like, we all are going through stuff. So anyway, the question would be like, are you still in pain? And the answer is absolutely I am. And when I build huge snowmen, when I'm not in flow, when I do not respect the realities of the human experience, my pain intensifies.
Yes, indeed. You're so right. It's like two things popped in my head, but I guess I'll go with the serious one, even though both could be serious. So my goodness, and it kind of goes back to with you being a resiliency expert, and folks will think, "Oh yeah, resiliency. It's when you bounce back," and it's like she doesn't
Oh,
like that term.
God, you did your homework. You said that just for me, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Here's the thing. You can't bounce back. First of all, we're not basketballs. We shouldn't be bouncing. Second of all, the very notion of change is that what was is no longer. Us trying to go back to the way it was is setting ourselves up for failure. Anyway, Dom, you weren't asking me a question. I just couldn't resist. You said the bounce back just for me. Yes, I don't believe in it. I actually think it does a disservice. You want to play with the other platitudes that do a disservice, or is that another show? Might be. Anyway, back to you.
Hey, it's all good because I found that interesting too. Because funny enough, I interviewed a guest yesterday, and hers is kind of like the opposite. I won't say the name of the of her podcast because it has about the title. And I was like, oh, I got Allison today. She's not a fan of the bounce back. It's kind of hilarious because it's all right. We're not basketballs. It's like we're not meant to bounce on the floor. Maybe we can bounce in other ways. I mean, yeah, let's do the whole Tigger thing from Winnie the Pooh every now and then. But like, hey, don't want to do a disservice to yourself, indeed, because sometimes you never know. Sometimes maybe even greater to focus on forward as opposed to focusing on bouncing back to the old self just because it was comfortable.
And the variables are changing. Like what was no longer exists. So searching for it, like, of course, I want to go back to the body I had before my surgery and before the surgeon got a little carried away and in over his head. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, anybody got a magic wand? I spent years looking for it, and it did not serve me well. And so instead of trying to bounce back, we have to give ourselves the space and the grace to process today's reality and find a path where we can be comfortable moving forward.
Yeah, that's right, indeed. Especially when it involves going north, indeed. That's right, indeed.
Going north. Nobody's going south, right? Bounce back. Well, people are going south, but anyway, I digress.
That's the part
You're
of
like, well,
bounce you
I'm
gotta
on a highway right now going southbound, so Allison's wrong. Discount everything she said.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with a discount every now and then when it comes to sales. It's something that you like and something you've been needing. That's right, indeed, even though it probably was more on the want side instead of the need side of the game. So, my goodness. So, with all that magical, not so magical, I guess we'll call it dark magic. I guess the dark magic pain, you still find ways to keep your youth at the front because do you still do the Kempo karate too?
You know what? I did not get to do it because it's only Tuesday and Thursday nights, and I started traveling again. So I was never there. And I'm really disappointed because I got my yellow belt, and that was the most proud I've been, I swear, in my life. And well, probably not in my life, but I was very proud. And I would love to go back, but I need a Kempo sensei, is that it? To travel with me. If anybody has like traveling senseis or sensei, well, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, my guy who taught me. Anyway. I should have done it when I had the Resiliency Ninja podcast, right? Because I always like, right? And it was like, and I still do that. It's like my moment to like cut through the BS of life and, reset. It's a, and that was my old thing with the Resiliency Ninja. And I was not a ninja. So then I went to karate, and now, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, because I was curious because I'm like, oh man, that sharp pain probably hurts like hell. And then, of course, the injuries that come with martial arts after a while. So it's like, hey, any traveling senseis out there? That's right, indeed. He's got the head on straight. That's right, indeed. Help out a sister.
Well, and here's the thing. If you have chronic pain, there are certain things that can aggravate it. I totally get that. And you want to be mindful. But there comes a point in your pain journey where I recognized that A, I have to be friends with my pain instead of trying to fight it. And B, I can be healthy and active and in pain, or I can be inactive and unhealthy and in pain. The pain is the pain. And so doing exercise, choosing to put my body in positions to try to figure out how to be strong around the pain is really, really important. But I can only do that if I have the capacity and make the choices and do the, not create ice cubes that turn into snowmen and all round and round. See how it all fits together?
That's right, indeed. Fits together like a glove or even like peanut butter and jelly. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Not too much jelly so the folks won't get jealous.
I don't even know what that means, but I'm laughing anyway. So we're good.
Yeah, I guess it didn't get too popular. It was just random. Folks would be like, you jelly, huh? It's like, huh? Like old comparison trap thing.
No. Yeah.
So
Dom,
my goodness.
I think you're very funny. You are a joy to hang out with. Like, no wonder your podcast is successful. And I hope that you just touch lives around this globe.
Oh, sweet. That's what I'm talking about. That's the aim right there. That's right, indeed. You're helping to make it happen, indeed. That's right, indeed. Hashtag aiming Allison. That's right, indeed. She's got a sniper aim, y'all. That's why she's a coach, indeed. Heck, I wasn't going to ask this question, but now I have to ask you since I mentioned sniper and coaching. So, what would you consider your greatest lesson learned from one of your coaching clients that made you a better coach?
Oh, do you want to be helped, hugged, or heard? Learning to ask that question in the right moment, because a lot of times people just want to be heard and they don't need to be helped. And as a coach, I actually consider myself more of a consultant coach, because people generally hire me to help them figure out the answer. And I don't just ask questions until they figure it out for themselves, right? Like I can see the path and they hire me specifically to give them that path and work with them in developing it. But I think through my coaching experience, learning that was significant, because I know I need to be invited to give people advice, because I will literally, every conversation, I will give you advice in the old days. And I realized not everybody is looking for advice all of the time, myself included, by the way. So I need people to invite me in to be like, I need the help right now. And it's not just about venting, because sometimes our clients just need to vent. And I offer that judgment-free zone. I think that's the other piece, is you really have to create a safe container for people, for them to be honest.
There we go. That's right, indeed. You got to create that safe container, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Just make sure it's not one of them ice cubes or one of them white rooms inside of an ice cube. That's right, indeed. Where it's like, after 20 days, you make friends with other folks in the room who are not affiliated in the room in that ice cube.
You go around with ice cubes on your desk. Just be like, here's my pile I have to deal with today. But you know, it's interesting because you got a pile of ice cubes, you're going to have tons. Like that's just life. You got a lot of stuff you got to do. But if you're emotionally attached to it, you're never going to be free.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. And that's probably one of my favorite answers so far to that question about the coaching thing, the good old H3. So, do they want to be helped, hugged, or heard, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
There we go. That H3. That's right, indeed. That H3. Who needs 4-H? This ain't the 4-leaf clover. It's the H3. This is for the coaches. That's right, indeed. You got to know which H is the one they need. That's right, indeed. They may not need the advice all the time because they might not even do it. They might not follow it.
Right. Or they say, oh, no, that won't work. And you know that when they're pushing back on what you're saying, that they need to just be heard in that moment. They're not open to ideas. It's really quite a fascinating thing when you start thinking in terms of that.
Yeah, indeed. Heck yeah, indeed. Well, two more questions. I'll let you make a run for it. So the first one, the easy one, and I'm kind of tempted to mention book number 2 since we didn't mention it. So I'm going to mention just for the heck of it. So if your wonderful book, Married My Mom, Birthed a Dog, if that book were a food, what would it be and why?
It'd be nachos, because it's very comforting and probably bad positioning. Yeah, so Married My Mom, Birthed a Dog was a joke that I thought was a brilliant book title, because the subtitle is How to Be Resilient When Life Sucks. Turns out not everybody has the same sense of humor that I have. So when you read the book, you will know exactly what it means. See, when my doctor told me, my neurologist sat, I remember sitting across from him at the hospital, and he said, Allison, you need to understand what's happening here. You are never going to be off pain medication. Your pain is never going away. You are never going to work full time again. And you need to reevaluate your expectations for your life. And I was like, that's not going to happen. I'm not going on disability, right? Because that was his thing. We're going to talk about you going on disability. And I was like, no. And he's like, well, then you need to figure out how to be resilient. And it sent me down this path of looking for advice on resilience and everything that's going on. But, you know, I'd find things like, you got to bounce back. And I'm like, yeah, but there's a knife like that's twisting into my body. I can't bounce back from that. right? And that's why when I spent so long trying to get the magic snake oils that were going to take it away, and please, nobody send me pain ideas of how to get rid of pain. Trust me, I've been through everything and still continue, but I'm not searching to get rid of it. You have to be at peace with what you have and striving for better, right? Anyway, that conversation sent me in the direction I'm in now. Okay. So calling my mom when I realized that I couldn't drive myself on the highway to my gigs. And I was like, what I need is a chauffeur. And I did not have money for a chauffeur. But I swallowed my pride and I called my mom and I said, Mom, I know you're adjusting to life after Dad died, but like, what if you came and lived with me? We'd have so much fun. And by the way, you could drive me to all my gigs. You could take me and drop me off at the front door and and you could look after the house and you could like do all my, work. And on the nights when I'm in too much pain to get up, you could turn off the light for me. And she said yes. So Mom came to the city. She lived with me. And then one day I was out with friends of mine and we were at, just like having a coffee, right? Hanging out, having a drink. And one talked to her husband. It was like, hey, I'm going to be a little bit longer. We're just having a really good chit chat and okay, what's for dinner? And, all that husband-wife conversation that was happening. And then another friend's husband called and it was exactly the same thing. And then my mom called and they just went, oh my gosh, you've married your mom. And I'm like, oh, we just had the exact same conversation, didn't we? Yeah. Anyway, it was really funny. So that was the joke with married my mom. And it really makes sense in the book. And then birth the dog was, because of the surgery and just life circumstances, I spent my 30s trying to survive. I didn't end up meeting, my knight in shining armor of sorts. And not that I was necessarily looking for a knight in shining armor, but it would have been great to have the traditional family and kids and all of that, but that wasn't in my cards. So I ended up having a dog and I understand he's not a child. I did not give birth to him. I adopted him. And anyway, so married my mom, birthed the dog, how to be resilient when life sucks. That was the other book.
Yeah, because your bet's just like, yeah, there's another book. I'll mention that later. And I'm like, she didn't mention it. And it's like, I know we're talking about taking back your weekends, but it's like, you know what? That title's too freaking hilarious of a title not to mention it. So it's like, I was going to ask her.
It's good. I tried to change it on Amazon. I think it says like just how to be resilient when life sucks, because I thought that would be better for SEO, but it's still, I haven't changed the inside of the book. But anyway, it's better than you may think by the title. I love the title, but anyway, it embarrassed my family. They were like, what? I was like, oh, was that a problem?
That's right, indeed. To be like resiliency. What's this, a book about incest and Allison being a furry?
Right. Oh my God. I never even thought that bad.
That's probably why they were so pissed. They're like, wait, why you married your mom?
My mind doesn't work that way. I'm like, does not everybody have a sense of humor? But anyway, it's called sarcasm. Apparently it's the lowest form of humor. I've learned that now, but anyway, obviously. So people will now need to go and read the book so they understand.
That's right, indeed. Don't worry, there's no ring on her finger. She didn't actually marry her mom. It's okay. We were just messing. We're just joshing. Oh, coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is, if you don't wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're still in the current year, what advice would you give to yourself?
Don't compare yourself to other people. And I think now it's more important because you have to be so grounded in who you are. And I mean, I was so hard on myself, like just horribly negative inner critic, as many of us do. And now I've probably gone to the other end of the spectrum, but anyway, that's another story, because it's just like I worked so hard to find confidence that It doesn't mean I don't doubt. It doesn't mean it's just I don't put a lot of snow around life in that realm. But I think comparing, and now that there's so much availability on social media, I think if I were 25 years old in this world, I would be like, turn off the scrolling. Be very careful about what you're putting into your brain. It's why every day I watch something that's positive or like a learning in terms of human experience and how to be healthier or have a better mindset or whatever. Like my YouTube algorithm doesn't serve me crap and negativity because I don't watch it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. One of those great answers that you hear more than once with that question, indeed. Like, don't compare yourself to other folks, y'all. Avoid the comparison gap. It's a trap, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Because if you compare yourself to other people, you're inviting nature's cocaine to flood you. It'll turn your ice cube into a giant forest of snow. You'll be in 6 feet of snow. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Or 5,000 centimeters of snow for the metric system. That's right, indeed. Which is probably even
Thank you
dumber.
for being inclusive to Canada.
Yeah, that's right, indeed. Busy sticking my inches everywhere. Like, okay, fine. We'll add centimeters. We'll get the metric system over. Oh, I can tell your mind was somewhere else with that one.
I was not gonna go. I'm like, I'm not gonna laugh at that because I'm still stuck on the last comment. It's all good.
Man. Yep. There's an alphabet joke in there, but I won't say it. It involves a name and I won't do it. so I lied about the two questions. I have to ask this question. So for those of you to keep in contact with you, what's the best way for folks to do so?
Oh, right. We want them to say hello to me. You know what? Come on over to my website. I think that's the best thing. And actually, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a link for your listeners, and it's going to be allisongraham.com/going north. Okay. So come on over there and I will, I've got a lift up. I've got all my social media things. So the lift up is a weekly email that goes out weekly-ish because, you know, life happens. And yeah, I'd love to invite people into my realm. If you found this helpful in any way, by all means. And if you're planning a conference or a part of a company that's planning a conference, like consider me as a keynote speaker. That would be phenomenal. But in the meantime, I've got all this content ready to go. Giving it away. So allisongraham.com/going north.
Woohoo! There we go. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Hashtag abundance Allison, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's why she's got Allison with two L's, indeed, because she's got to have the extra L, y'all. That's right, indeed. Some say LL Cool J. In this case, it's LL Cool Graham. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. From Instagram to Cool Graham.
I'm writing down my note. Going north. Adding it now. See, it's just an ice cube that needs to be done. The gosh, I used to do that on the Resiliency Ninja. Yeah, podcast. Gosh, that was a fun podcast. But then I got rid of the branding Resiliency Ninja when I moved away from the Married My Mom Birthed the Dog book. And yeah, so I stopped doing it, but it was a lot of fun while it lasted.
Well, I can tell you're having fun with that one too. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Nice little snippets, good old 8 to 15-minute episodes. That's right, indeed. Nice little content. That's right, indeed. Making sure you don't let comparison choke out your progress. That's right, indeed. Busy staring at other folks' grass, thinking it's greener. When truth be told, it was a veneer. It was really brown. You were colorblind because you're on the other side of the fence.
My God, my brother always has said the neighbor's grass is greener because their septic tank is leaking. Right? It's well fertilized. It's bullshit. Anyway,
that's-
yeah. Go, brother.
That's right, indeed. Hey, she said a family full of accomplished warriors, more like accomplished creatives. That's what I'm talking about. That's the next level analogy right there, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. All the fertilizer. We heard that right, folks. Fertilize your mind with Allison's content, y'all. That's right, indeed. It's a lot of it out there still, indeed. And she's cranking out more, indeed. She's a machine, metaphorically. She's cranking it out, indeed. Be on the lookout for her future book, The Stress Illusion. That's right, indeed. You're going to realize that the stress is just a big old house of mirrors, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Well, before a random camel hump appears with a penguin riding on it with a turban, any parting word before we close up shop, Allison?
Thanks for the platform and for sharing and having me on. And I'm grateful. Like any chance I get to serve, makes my heart sing. Thank you.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for 3. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it, because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.